What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Yala, your thrice weekly podcast where we talk about the hottest news with a touch of what, Terrence?
Good old humor.
Good old humor, man.
Yeah,
You know, now I realize as I'm saying that, right, I'm really not thinking of anything. I don't even know what's coming out of my mouth.
Oh, you mean the whole jingle at the start?
Yeah. I've become numb to it. I've become desensitized.
But you're saying it as in you just realized, or it's just it's become like muscle memory.
I think muscle memory, because as I was just saying it, I was reminding myself what the two topics were for today, and then I was like, oh shit, stuff is coming out of my mouth, but there's other stuff going on in my head.
I see. Yeah, I mean it happens. Comes with age, and also maybe some humility in realizing that not everything you say is super interesting. Also, you know.
I was wondering how you're gonna twist it in a way to shit on me in the end, huh? And well done, well done.
It's not all about you. There's an admission on my end that has happened to me in what I said. Somehow it became all about you again. When I mentioned that it's about age, and I am older, so that's why I'm telling you it's coming. The cognitive decline is real.
The cognitive decline. You gotta fight it, man. That's what people always say to you, right? Oh, once you hit 21, you will you'll start aching, you know. Then once you hit 30, then once you hit 40, we gotta fight it, man. Don't give up, Terrence.
No, you can fight it. But there are just certain things you need to learn to let go of, lah. You know, like expecting to be the snappiest, most interesting person in the room with all the radio jingles memorized and all that. Yeah, that doesn't fly that well in your late 30s and all that. Why are you laughing so much? Much?
No, I know there's laced with some indirect, it's not a slap in the face. It's just maybe just from a distance, motioning that slap.
This is the character assassination that you engage in. You keep reading the intentions of things such that our listeners on Reddit, all like, wow, Terrence is being so mean to Harshan. All I'm saying are facts. Facts that can be debated in Parliament, but they are facts, These are facts. Cognitive decline is real.
Don't make this a reality TV show, Terrence. Terrence, don't make this a reality TV show, okay? We need to stay mature, keep the conversations factual.
Yeah.
Do not make this a reality TV show.
Yes, no half-truths. No half-truths on Yalla Butt.
No half-truths. Exactly. No half-truths.
Yes.
But yes. I mean, it is the end of the debate for Budget 2023. One of the topics we are talking about is a direct consequence of that. But yeah, shall we jump into it? Oh, but first, as always, the plug.
Yes. And what is it we want to plug? I know it's something related to our how we're faring on Spotify, right? But I know you have the numbers to make it more concrete for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, we've once in a while mentioned that, if you've liked this podcast, if you enjoy it, it'd be cool if you could give us a rating on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. And right now, I just checked before this, we are at 795 ratings on Spotify, average score of 4.8, which is we're super proud of. So, if just 5 of y'all who haven't rated could spend 3 seconds to press 2 buttons and push it over 800, that would be great, lah. Maybe
what does it do?
5 seconds.
What does it do? Okay. Actually, what does it do for us when it goes to 800? Do you make more money? Do we get this big bump up or what? Why do we need to get 800?
Because Spotify will send us that plug, right? Oh, you got 800 ratings. No, I know for YouTube when we hit 100,000 subscribers that happened. But I think 800. I don't know. Okay, so honestly, when I look at a podcast or even a review online or something, if the number of people who rate it is quite high, right, immediately I'm like, oh shit, this must be pretty decent, lah.
That's true.
So there's that, and also right from the time we first started YouTube, Terrence and I and our team, we would always share milestones we hit, lah. I think in YouTube it was every time we hit the next 1,000 subscribers, we're like, fuck yeah, man. This one is just I guess it's more just the sentiment of it. I don't know whether it helps anything to do with the ranking or not, lah.
No, and it allows gives us a reason to celebrate, celebrate the small victories.
Yeah,
right?
correct.
Which in our line, it's
small wins.
In our line, these kind of things don't happen that often. So every time it happens, we want to savor it. So be a part of our savoring. come together and help us, enjoy this 5-star rating together. Yeah.
Yeah, Terence,
That's a weird
you
plug.
need a hug or not? You need a hug,
Huh?
no? Yeah, that's right. It was a weird plug. You need a hug, is it? You say
is.
it doesn't happen that often in this line.
It doesn't, right? It doesn't like what you said. Like YouTube is the only one that literally like celebrates you crossing one of these milestones, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
True.
But yes,
Sweet.
let's jump right into it.
Jump right into it, which in some way is related to a milestone in a lot of Singaporean lives. Not most, a lot of. It was the news surrounding the rejigging of the A-level curriculum that was announced by Minister of Education Chan Chun Sing as part of the budget debate 2023.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just to give context, I took my A-levels in 2002. No, 2002. And you took it in 2000.
2000. I was a Y2K A-level. Yeah.
Y2K A-level boy. And holy shit, it has changed so much since then. And this is another round of changes that were announced. So I mean, maybe before giving the round of changes, what if we just give a review for people maybe from our batch or 2000 who took A-levels 2006 and below, what the new structure is like? Because it took me a while to wrap my head around it also.
Yeah, I think I think anyone who took the A-levels in the 2000s, early 2000s or what, and you're wondering what the hell, I mean, there's so many changes to the education system. I don't know what's going on. Actually, when you really look at it, the fundamentals are pretty much the same, the same principles of what you need to do and all. Of course, there's a lot of variation in terms of how your university admissions and all are calculated. But generally, if you ever took the A-levels, like, late 90s, 2000s, whatever, you can understand this topic quite quickly. And I think that's what Harish is raring to go to explain to you with his 70 tabs.
Yeah.
He's going to open tab number 69 right now.
Today I'm going light, maybe about 20 tabs.
Okay. It's a good day.
Yeah, so during our time, for A-levels, you could take, you have your main core subjects, which could be 3 or 4. I don't know if you could take 2. You take 3 or 4. Then you have your general paper, your mother tongue, and then your special papers if you wanted to explore any particular subjects to a deeper level. And of course, you get the overachievers who get like 4 main subjects, 3 S papers, GP, mother tongue, and they get distinctions for all. And that was insane. But after that, it was like, okay, then it's ABC, right? A, B, C, D, E, F for the 4 main subjects. So that was essentially it, right?
Essentially, yeah.
Pretty simple. And So what I understand is that 2006 there was a big change to the curriculum, and they introduced a bunch of stuff. I don't know whether all came in 2006 or along the way, but as of maybe last year, each subject you have H1, H2, H3. So H1 is the less depth. H2 is most of the core subjects are taken at that level, and H3 is the highest one. So that's not, H3 is not included in the rank points. H2 has more weightage in the rank points, and H1 has less. So that's for the core subjects. And then the combinations and all, you take your core subjects, you take general paper, you take mother tongue, and you also take project work. So project work and mother tongue, both you take in the first year of JC. And project work is like a year-long project that starts at the start of the year and finishes at the end of the year. Then there was a contrasting subject requirement. So if you take mainly art subjects, you need to take 1 science. If you take mainly science, you need to take 1 arts. And then you get the more weird combinations where the schedule your classes might be at different times. So at the end of the day, you have your 3 or 4 core subjects, your GP, your project work, and then your mother tongue. So from what I understand, to calculate the university admission score, which is the UAS, currently it is your 3 subjects, which could be H2 or and H1 as well. Your GP and project work all go into the points, the UAS. And your mother tongue is only included if it increases your UAS score. Correct? So So yeah, so project work, GP, and your fourth subject, if you do take one, is calculated into the US for a maximum of 90 points. So that's what it was up till the announcement. And the announcement, basically, there were three main things that changed. One is that the project work is no longer going to be graded; it's going to be pass-fail. And then the scores are going to be calculated differently. Only your three main subjects and GP will be calculated as a base, while the mother tongue and your fourth core subject will only be included if it increases the score. And project work is not included at all.
It's a pass-fail. It's a pass-fail subject that is required. You're required to pass for university admission, but nothing. The grades actually don't matter.
Correct. Yeah. Nothing more than that. And then there's the removal of mid-year examinations, because that one, the changes were already made in primary and secondary school, but they will now be made in junior college as well. So those were the subjects. Just some context for project work. What I understand is that project work, there are three main components. Basically, you group up into different groups, and then you have a written paper, which is like 3,000 words. You have an oral presentation. And one more thing. What is the third thing you have? Let's see. So 3 topics. Okay. Wow, this one I have to dig deep.
Okay.
And an individual component. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, that was the end of my spiel.
Yeah. I'm afraid we might have already lost half the audience already, because a lot of people, firstly, it's like so long ago, and why do they care? But broadly speaking, this is probably for you and me. This is probably the first time we really sat down to try and understand what changes have happened since we were in school 20 odd years ago, right?
Correct.
Yes. So when you look at it like that, what are the big differences between how A-level was back in the day for you, and what surprised you about what you just read and the whole spiel that you just completed?
I think a couple of things. First, that even your core subjects, you can take it to different levels, and they each have different weightage. And that project work is included in your grade. And that mother tongue is included only if it betters the score.
Yeah. And then I think
that's the current version. Yeah.
I guess the emphasis on contrasting subjects, where you need to really you're almost forced to take a subject that's out of your preferred field, right? That's something new to me, because I think back in the day it was really about, okay, in JC back then, it was really about we were forced to sort of like hone in on what your specialty was already, right? Whether you're going to triple science or are you going to apply to be a doctor? Are you going to, pursue the arts and go for, get to a university in the US and pursue a liberal arts education? So back in the day, I always felt like, wow, I'm barely 15, 16 or whatever, and I really have to make such tough choices about what I want to do to study for the rest of my life. So it felt, if anything, I would say it felt like a very, not stressful, but intellectually dishonest period, where I was studying things because of what I thought my future self would want to study, as opposed to, because I enjoyed it or anything like that. So maybe, I don't know, there's a lot of merits and demerits that you could debate about being forced to take a subject that's not within your comfort zone, right? But that to me, it seemed like the biggest thing that I was like, when I saw it, I was like, oh wow, it's quite interesting change that has been made in these past 2 decades.
Yeah. And then so that was the big change that since early 2000s has kind of like snowballed into what it currently is. And then the big change going forward is those few things. I think the one that is causing a lot of chatter is the project work in particular, that it is not going to be included and that it's pass-fail.
But actually, so why do you think, from your perspective, right? Why do you think project work came into the picture and now it's being taken out as pass-fail?
I can imagine it coming into the picture, because now that fuck, we took like A levels like 20 plus years ago. Oh my God. As you go into the real world, as you work, you realize that at work, almost everything is project based, right? You work at a company, it's one big ass project. And like, I don't know, I felt in JC, secondary school, you study, it's, you're on your own and you don't have to deal with the politics and all that come with life. So I can imagine, you're like, okay, that is a part of life. Let them experience it when they're young to get a feel. Because even university, you immediately go, there's a lot of project work, right?
I remember
any tertiary education, I can imagine.
Yeah. Because for you and me, I think getting out of JC, then going into, then through army, and then going to JC. Not JC, going to university in the US, right? Like, I was taken aback my first year in US by how much project work there was, right? By how much collaboration was required and how much of that collaboration also pointed towards my grades, right? Affected your own grades. Because I think in Singapore, at that time, our system was very, very geared towards like, you just study and then you vomit everything out during your exams and you'll be fine. There's no need to care about how other people are doing. In fact, if they slow you down, just don't listen, don't hang out with them, don't listen to them. Whereas then when you come to the US, it's like, when you go to project work, sometimes like people literally don't even turn up for meetings. They just like come to meetings unprepared, or but then when they get to class, suddenly they're the ones presenting in front of everybody and they sound absolutely like they did their shit, right? And that really shocked me. That it seemed like the American education system really, emphasized and prepared the young students from a young age to, figure out how to work in groups and figure out, when you can slack off and when you need to put in effort and really focus on those parts where you need to put in effort, which is essentially the presentation and looking like you did a lot of work, right? So I was like, honestly, I was like, whoa, shit, like, we are not prepared for this side of the world that is out there.
Yeah, so I think it's funny because I remember that it almost became a thing, no? Like if you have an Asian person or like a Singaporean person in your group, right? It's a fucking bonus.
Yeah.
And people were proud of it. I remember even people saying, yo man, I got a Singaporean in my group, we're set. I was like, holy shit. Because I can imagine in Singapore, where you just put your head down, you go in your lane, you do 10-year series like 100 times, you can ace. I can imagine like people taking on the load of others. I know certain group projects I had to do, like some people just didn't show up and you can talk you want with them, you can try and sort out. But after a while, it's like, no, you just cover up for them. So I can imagine the benefit of why it was included in JC. I'm so glad I didn't have to do it, but I can imagine the benefit.
Yeah. But at the same time, the flip side is, when you are in JC, if you recall those years, it's such a tumultuous time in your life, right? Like in terms of like social, getting to know people, you're discovering things about the opposite sex or whatever, like, all those things going on in your life. And then you have to couple that with imagine having to couple that with having to manage a group of people and try to get a project that will affect your future. I can imagine it being a lot tougher than in university. Because I think in university, generally, it's also a bit of self-selection where people are a lot more motivated to do well, try their best to do well, right? So JC, at least for me, I felt like JC was a very like, it's such a drudgery to have to study this and have to take this exam. Why do I have to deal with this and all that, right?
But then, like, so the thing about project work, because one thing that did come up in articles I covered is they said it's something that is already part of the polytechnic education. So admittedly, I'm not the most well-versed, but I have heard anecdotally from friends that project work is a lot more common there. So isn't this a case potentially of like, yo man, this is the real fucking world. You're gonna have to work as a team. So why make it pass fail? Because then it's so easy to not care.
But at the same time, like,
right.
If project work is only one aspect of it, right? It seems like it's because project work will rely on your teammates and everything, right? And like I said, there are different people have different motivations in JC for what they want to do, and also it also feels like sometimes even if you want to do well and you put in the effort, you might not be able to get everyone on the same page. And maybe when you're 15 or 16, or 16 or 17 years old, you're not equipped to deal with interpersonal relations that well, right? As opposed to when you're a bit older. And it could end up, you just end up like you feeling like you're dragging dead weight along if you feel like someone's not doing well, and that ends up like dragging down your score because of someone else's lack of effort and all. So just feels like a very difficult thing to be grading a 16 or 17-year-old kid on lah. The ability to manage work alongside other 16 or 17-year-old kids. What do you think?
Yeah. And I mean, like, I was trying to think, it sounds like hell. But I mean, at the same time, it also sounds like it could be beneficial. But maybe it's because to have that group thing be calculated as part of your university admission score, which, I mean, okay, university at every level is one of those things that could shape your future. You can talk all you want about like the different schools and all, but I do feel like which school you go to does impact you in many ways. So at that age, having such a big influence for the first time, because secondary school, I don't think there's anything that counts towards such a monumental exam, right? I feel that, maybe it's not the best idea. And then when I was thinking, okay, how do students actually think about it? And you look online, a lot of the Reddit threads, like the Singapore, the Reddit subreddit for SG exams, everyone talks about project work as like the bane of their junior college. And I think like looking at it, I'm like, okay, I can totally imagine, because at that age, you're 16, 17, it's new, but that doesn't mean that it should be done this way. I still think project work can be useful, but maybe like the difference between universities, for example, and I don't know about polytechnics, but universities, each semester is like 6 months, right? And you do a project for that, it's half a year. And it's maybe one of many courses you're going to take. This is the entire half of your junior college, or if for Millennium Institute, it's 1/3. So that's where I feel like, wow, that is super significant. You come into JC, it's already kind of like, okay, a new environment. And then boom, you come out these people you have to work with without having any idea of like the school itself. Maybe feels like it's the weightage of it, I think.
And JC is actually, in the larger scheme of things, JC is really only just 2 years of your life, right? It's a very short period where you actually, the leap from secondary school to JC is a much bigger leap, I felt, than, other leaps from primary to secondary, or even JC to university, right? It requires a lot more deeper understanding of subjects. The level of stress I felt was much higher. I don't know about you, but for me, JC just felt like this. Academically, it was like a hellhole, right? There was a lot of studying. It was a lot of like, I took a lot. My parents sent me for a lot of tuition classes, and there was just, everything was just geared towards like, if you don't do well, your future is ruined because you can't get into a good university, blah blah blah, things like that, it was just I don't know. For me, it bred a very it took me a while to get over that very cynical view about academics because of JC, right? I was very disillusioned by like, being forced to study really hard in subjects I wasn't that interested in. And it took me, I mean, surprisingly for me, it was going to army where you have to switch off your brain for like about almost 2 years, right? It was in there that I was like, oh fuck, like I actually enjoy some aspects of studying and learning and all that. So it was in army where after almost like a year and a half of like my brain being switched off, I was like, no, I feel my brain rotting. I need to switch it back on again, So it's like, I would say being in army actually spurred me to like want to like learn how to enjoy studying, learn how to, find stuff I was passionate about. And all.
What in army, like, were you studying? The military tests and all?
No, as in just not military tests. Like, no. Harish, not everything is need to study according to what job you're currently in, man. It's just
Sorry, I don't understand how else to study if not for a test. What are you talking about, Terence?
oh, it's just about
What else you study in life?
yeah. I mean, in the military, I think because I mean, if you remember, like army time, beyond BMT, beyond all the schools and all that, it's actually there's a lot of downtime in between exercises or whatever, lah, right? And a lot of times when you're 18 years old, 17, 18 years old, or 18, 19 years old, like in the army, there's what else can you do? All your other friends are also in the army and all that. So I spent a lot more time reading. I started to read a lot of things, a lot of history, a lot of science and everything. Things that books I never would have touched when I was younger, the only things I would have read last time were textbooks, right? And just purely to pass exams. So I think in army it was when I really realized that you only got this one brain, and if you let the army just take it away from you, that's that's the last part the army can never take from you. They can take your body, but they will never take my brain. That was my protest, yeah.
Fuck lah! I thought you were saying, the rigor of the armed forces and the discipline made me realize that, your mind-body connection is stronger.
No,
you're
man.
like, this was numbing my mind.
Numbing my mind.
This was numbing my brain.
Yeah, I was like, even on weekends, I'll be like, you know what? Like the army wants me to be healthy so I can be a great soldier. I'm going to go out this weekend and eat a fucking buffet. That's my protest. I will stuff my body until it's like useless vestige of unhealthy diet, and then I present it to the army. This is your soldier. This is your soldier. But my brain, I tried my best to keep my brain intact, yeah.
Just now at the start of your spiel, I was thinking, you're going to start playing like Majula Singapura in the background.
Oh, no. I'm not the OCS,
no.
the Gold Officer Command School type, and then, end up like just swallow everything, hook, line, sinker about propaganda and all that. I thought very critically about these things.
I believe that statement falls under the domain of mischaracterization, Terence.
Oh, okay.
I believe
sorry, sir. I mean, this is Harish, you
don't make me pull rank. Don't make me fucking pull rank.
I'm really out army. I'm the highest ranking person, right? I'm a civilian. Highest ranking. That's the highest rank you can achieve now.
Okay, next time you go reservist, then I will just show up.
I'm done, dude. I'm done. Yeah, that's the thing. I'm done. Yeah, no more already. Highest rank. I've achieved the highest rank already outside of SPH CEO lah. Yeah.
No, so then sometimes when you are facing difficulties, that's when you find another part of yourself, right? So by making this pass fail, already there's so much talk about the snowplow, parent, the snowplow politician, I don't know, the coddling of the American mind and all. Isn't this kind of also pushing people away from the eventuality of adulthood, like having to work? I know there's the age thing, but maybe then it's a bigger discussion of like, maybe if it's just a standalone exam, because I don't know, pass fail, I think there is some benefit to having a rigorous project to work on together and see people like for who they are and all. But pass fail, I feel, takes that away.
But actually, to me, if pass fail, if all you want to give is give people or give young kids a taste of what the real world is like, right? Real world where you have to work with people and there's going to be slackers, there's going to be people, wayanging and taking over your spot and things like that. I think pass fail gives you enough of a taste already, lah. And you can learn a lot from just, getting past the finish line, whether you got an A or a C or whatever. As long as you get past the finish line, I think there will be something you learn from it. And if the point is just to give them a taste, then I think pass fail is fine. I don't think it's necessary to grade people and increase the stress in terms of like, I need to learn how to manage people. Because to me also one aspect of our education system is like CCAs, right? And how CCAs play into your university scores. And I think there's a lot that you already do in terms of like teamwork and group work in your CCA, regardless of what you do, whether it's a sport or uniform group or a musical group or what. I feel there's a lot that you already learn about working with people. But at least that one I feel like it's more fulfilling as a young person, right? Whether you play a team sport or you are part of a uniform group or what, at least I feel like there's more to learn there than just working on a project that's related to your academic side of things, lah.
Yeah, I think I get what you mean. That also because like the examples of like university work, adulthood. I think even at university, if you get a damn chalak project or damn chalak group, because you take so many courses, your GPA. I don't know how else they calculate now, but last time it used to be GPA, which is your average across like 40 credits lah. So if one is fucked up, you still have like 39 lah. With work, if you are in a toxic culture, you can quit. Of course, you have to weigh the options, but for junior college, like that 1 year thing, when I was reading it, I was like, oh shit, you get it at the start of J1, and then for the whole year you present, oh my god. So maybe, okay, I don't know whether the other subjects at this point have project work as part of their course, but maybe like mini projects that are not pass-fail. Because I feel there's not part of the university enrollment process, because I think it's also one of those things that I don't know whether it could further inequality or like watching Physical 100 recently, right? I mean, I think spoilers are totally kosher now. You see when they start grouping up, right? You get some people who are like, wow, they are badass fitness people who are solid character, but because it's a team thing, right? Then you get dragged down, and that's sad.
Yeah.
That's sad, right?
It's I think what you're talking about is basically having people to work in groups. It's a very different endeavor, right? When you expect them to really take charge of their own future as well, So I don't know, man. It's the thing is that this project work was introduced in the I think mid or to late 2000s. And then now people are characterizing it as a little bit of I wouldn't say a U-turn, right? But a little bit of an admission that maybe it wasn't what it was cut out to be, and maybe it's not that great. But they don't want to make it look like a complete. Like they don't want to just get rid of it completely because that would look terrible. That would be admitting that you made a mistake. So the U-turn is okay, it's pass-fail, and you don't have to care as much about it, And same for the fourth subject, the contrasting subject thing also, right? Maybe it wasn't a good idea to force people who don't like a subject to have to study something else that they don't like. And the other option is like, okay, we don't count it towards your grade, But actually, I did want to ask you one thing, What do you think about the removal of mid-year exams? Because I think if you think about it, like what you said, it's a big milestone also, right? Even like every academic year is always about, the mid-year exams and then the prelims and then the actual A-levels and all for A-level students. So this is actually a very big milestone that is removed. What do you think of that?
So that one, I mean, I guess that one. Okay, so my first thought is like, that means isn't that going to put a lot more weight on the final exam? Because at the end, you're still going to have to take an exam. And sometimes when you have something that's almost like a dress rehearsal, I know you have prelims and all, but I don't know whether you have, sometimes I think you do get used to taking tests and you understand your study habits and build up. So I don't know, man. It's not super clear to me how I feel about that.
Yeah.
Of course, it's always easier said than done, and I can imagine students listening to like these two old fuckers. They have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. But yeah, just off the top of my head, it's not super clear. What about you?
I mean, I looked at it from two perspectives. First, as when we were students and just generally as a student, definitely it sounds good in theory that you don't have to study for a big exam in the mid-year. But like what you said, taking exams also is a skill, right? There are certain things about taking exams, about studying, about how you organize your time and how you pace yourself. It's like running a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. So there are certain skills about taking exams that you only learn by taking exams, right? I remember in BMT, I remember I was like, my mind was so blown when my BMT sergeant last time told me, when I was trying to pass my IPPT and everything, he's like, hey, Terrence, the best way, what the best way is to train for pull-ups? To do pull-ups. So, and then it started a regimen of going and just tugging at the bar for like 20 minutes before dinner every day, you know. And then in the end, I passed. And then, you know, it was like a piece of advice I think you can take to a lot of things you do in life, where sometimes the best thing to prepare for something is to just jump right into it and try it. So in that sense, the media exams, it helps you train that muscle quite a bit, the muscle of, you know, stuffing a lot of data in your head, learning how to manage your time and everything. And also the stress. I think the stress levels, don't underestimate the amount of stress that comes with taking an exam, right? I remember those days when sitting at exam hall, like sometimes my hands would be like shaking, like before an econs paper, because I knew like I had to like physically write 8 pages of words, right? And my hands were just like shaking because like they were, I don't know, just getting ready for the pain. So as a student, you know, there's something to consider. But also more recently, becoming a parent, right? A parent. You might think that parenting these days is all about free play, child-led play, letting the child decide for himself what he wants to do. But I realized on sending my kid to school, for example, I remember the first day I dropped him off at school and watched him like just, you know, walk in or get carried into his school. There was this sudden like, oh shit, I'm like giving him up to the institutions really. You know what I mean? Like basically all along this little guy who's been dependent on you, dependent on mama for everything, in you know, from feeding to pooping to whatever. Suddenly you're like, you give all that up. You have to let go and just let the institutions take over already. And one of the big things I realized is that when you don't actually know what's going on in the institutions, as a parent, you actually get very worried. Whether, you know, if the teachers don't update you about what's going on in school, or you try to ask your kid what's going on in school, and then they don't really give you a really good answer and all that, then you start to get worried. So as a parent, I can also see how removing a mini exam, it kind of takes away from the how much you know about how your kid is faring in school. Like you can hear from him, you can hear from his friends, you can hear your teacher say, oh, he's doing okay. But there's nothing that as easily digestible and concrete as exam grades, right? So when you take that away, I think for parents, they could get very kanchong about how their kid is faring. So I was actually talking to an educator, asking her last week about, well, how is all this going to affect y'all? And the thing she said is like, she thinks the tuition centers are going to rake in the big bucks, because she thinks that because there's no more mini exams, parents are going to overcompensate by sending the kids for extra tuition with their free time, you know, whether it's the June holidays or before the holidays or what. And they're just going to send them for tuition because they don't know how well the kids are doing, and they rather just do something like pay extra money for someone to be teaching them and all that. And that's where it's like, it can be quite, it might actually backfire in terms of giving the students more time to pursue their interests.
But Chan Chun Sing said that removal of media exams will not be replaced by school-based assessments, and school must not administer more than one weighted assessment for each subject a term. So that applies to parents as well. Okay?
That's why you go to external tuition agencies. That's why the private tuition is just going to make that much more money.
So then, okay, because I was also thinking one aspect of taking tests and exams is that I don't know, it feels like you kind of maybe get some exposure to being disappointed and knowing you fucked up, which is not an easy thing to stomach, you know, like, and you know, with seeing increasing rise of like anxiety and stress amongst younger children, especially when there are these milestone results that come out, I don't know, man, like, it feels... It's not as clear to me as like, let's say, primary school removing mid-year exams. That one, I think, okay, like, you know, that is a time when they are figuring shit out. You know, it's more important to almost to play, socialize and all that. But with JC, I don't know. So that's where it feels like, what? Yeah, it's not super clear. But does it differ for you? Like for primary school, is it a lot clearer for you? Like no mid-year exams make sense?
I think, for lower, I mean, in secondary school and primary school, I think it's in those institutions, it's a lot about the parents, right? It's a lot about the parents forcing the kids to study. It's a lot about the parents setting the structure for the kid to study. But once you hit the JC going age, I think that's where you really really need to teach you really need to let the kid start to set their own timetable, learn to sink and swim and everything, like, you know, because that's the period where after that you're chucking them into the, you know, whether the university or the military, depending on your gender and all. But to your point about learning disappointment, there's also the flip side of it where, you know, the psychological term learned helplessness, right? And I believe the experiment was this was back in the day when this was still the ethics of these experiments were not so suspect where they put a dog in a room. There was a little barrier between two sections of the room, and then on each side of the room that there was electric shock pad or something underneath lah. And the dog would, you know, it would feel the shock from one side, and to avoid the shock, it would jump to the other side of the room. Then that side of the room, after a few seconds, it would shock the dog. So the dog would just slowly learn to just keep jumping from section, like to and fro, in order to avoid the shocks lah.
Yeah.
But of course, you can't do that forever, right? You can't do that forever. So after a while, when the dog gets too tired and just learns that nothing I do will really avoid me ever getting shocked, right? They reach this stage that they call learned helplessness, where they basically just cower and just like, they just get shocked and they just don't do anything anymore. And they just learn that there's no point to actually trying to evade the system because it's so difficult, it's so rigged against me anyway, right? And
yeah,
so that's why I feel like when you say that thing about they need to learn about disappointment and they need to have some hard truths in order to survive. There's also the flip side that what they could learn is just helplessness. They learn that, you know, whatever they do, the system is rigged against them, and rather than be encouraged by seeing the shitty grades, they actually feel like, what's the point? I already so shitty, what for I put in more effort? I only got 6 months more and I need to take the bigger exam, which is going to be even harder. How the hell can I pass, you know? So in some sense, it also gives you, there's the flip side that people kids could just like give up because the mid-year exams are so bad. And 6 months not even 6 months, they have less than 6 months from the mid-years to the prelims or A-levels. And what's the point in trying any harder? They're not going to change anything. So I don't know, that's the thing. I mean, at least if like it was the your J1 exams where you didn't do that well, you can still say, okay, the next year I can still try harder. I can try and pick up the slack, right? Or even choose to repeat a J1, for example, like how I think when we had Alvin Tan on our podcast, he said that's what he chose to do, right? He chose to redo his whole J1 year in order to try harder, you know. So, you know, whereas the mid-year exams is just here's a grade, you suck, and you got like 3 months to turn your life around. If not, it's over already. It's over for you. So I don't know. To me, like maybe mid-years are, because they are so close to the prelims and the A-levels, it might not even make sense to have them.
I think it can go both ways, because I can see that point, but also I think the thing about, like, the one thing that I'm realizing talking through all this is, right, like when we were going through school, there was almost no experimentation. And I'm just thinking, like, how would it feel like as a student now, where every few years there's something changing? And I don't think it's a good feeling, man, because there's this whole sense of like, FOMO and shit like that. So I mean, hats off to the students, man. Already like going through COVID as a student was probably like fucking ridiculous. And then having these policies change every few years. Because for us last time you grew up, okay, there's PSLE, O-levels, A-levels as that one path, and then or after secondary school you go poly and then uni. It was just like I guess there's no right or wrong lah. But I will say that I think if Bruce Lee was asked this question about mid-year exams, I think he would say keep the mid-year exams, because he has that one famous quote: "I fear not the man."
Wait, what?
Fuck lah! I was going to get into the quote lah, Terrence.
I was going to ask why Bruce Lee, because it sounds so random. I mean, you should have set it up properly.
Don't shit on my setup. If you gave me the time to let the thing breathe, of course I have the tab open. I've had the tab open for like the past 7 minutes when you were going on your speech about mid-year exams.
I don't know, Harish, but this a conversation. It's not You're not giving a monologue.
Dude,
so
you just
people are going to react to stuff you say. I'm gonna ask questions. That's conversation.
You just gave a long ass monologue of like 4-5 minutes. So hello, point one finger. Got 4 fingers pointing at you. Yeah, anyone listening, you can go back.
Three fingers. 3 fingers pointing back.
So anyway, I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. So to adapt it, it will be, I fear not the man who has practiced taking tests and exams once, but I fear the man who has practiced taking tests and exams twice. Okay, it doesn't have the same kind of ring, lah. Yeah, so
yeah, but there's also the if you since we're talking about martial arts, there's also that saying that I will not saying there's also a belief that your chin can only take that many punches, lah. Like every time someone gets knocked out, they say your chin is never the same again. So you get 10,000, you get knocked out. You take the exam one more time, but in that one time you really get a knockout blow. It'll take you a very long time to recover, as opposed to you really train and prepare yourself. You have the time to really train yourself mentally to prepare yourself for the big fight, lah. There's also two things.
Yeah, there are two thinkings.
There's such a thing as overtraining or getting injured while sparring, which is like I think the bane of like or any of these mixed martial arts. So it's also something to think about.
Think about. And I mean, it could go both ways, but that's the point of a discussion and a conversation, right, Terence?
Correct. Yeah. Conversation.
So I'm curious if there are any students listening to this, because I know people have said they've listened to us for GP and all. It would be great to hear your perspectives, because we've been talking for a long ass time about it. So if you could just head on over to Reddit or Instagram and just let us know your thoughts, because we might be missing something totally off, lah.
Yeah, we might be.
Cool.
That's true.
Cool.
But speaking of failing exams and having like red all over your test papers, right? There's a bunch of people living in Tampines who are seeing nothing but red every single day. And it's caused a bit of a headache for them. And there's a bit of a public debate going on as well. And what is this big red issue?
Actually, it used to be red, but now I think no longer red already. And the issue was that for the blocks, a set of BTO blocks at Tampines, called, what's it called? It is Tampines Greenvine. There were pictures that came out last week of the lift lobbies, which were all painted red, like bright red, with some pretty strong lighting. And it was only for the lift lobbies, So that started going viral online, and people were like, what the fuck? It either looks like a red light district, it looks like an art exhibition, it looks like something that is very disconcerting. And there was a lot of chatter online. And then Bae Yam Keng also responded saying they are looking into it. And he's the senior parliamentary secretary for sustainability and environment and the MP for Tampines. So he said he's asked HDB to review it. And as of last week, the lobbies have been painted white. So that was how it kind of ended. So, but more recently, there was a photographer, Darren So, who posted something on Facebook just saying that it's also not the best thing that we just shit on things that are a bit more experimental, the things that are a bit more bold. And he went down to take photos of the other blocks which have yellow lift lobbies, because he said he feels that will also be turned white. Then it became a debate of like, how far do you want to push innovation and bold stuff versus keeping things comfortable that people are used to. So I mean, there's no conclusion yet. But what was your thoughts when you first saw the lift lobbies, the pictures of the lift lobbies?
To be honest, I thought it's quite cool. It's definitely very unique, right? And it's not just the red lift lobby, right? There's another block that's like yellow in color, right? Entirely yellow. So I thought, it's quite interesting to live in a building that let's say you hop into a cab or whatever, and you tell the uncle, I'm staying at the red HDB in Tampines. Immediately they know which one you're talking about already, right? and that like it's such a unique thing in Singapore when the whatever place you stay in, it's can be identified by a very unique architectural feature, right? So to me, it was like I thought it was cool. But yeah, that was my initial thought. How about you?
Okay, so my initial thought was like, holy shit, fuck that for the red one. For the red one.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and I mean, it is something that I've thought of before, like, in the sense, I think a lot of people feel this, like in Singapore, the HDBs are quite stock standard. You don't get as much variation as maybe you got in the 80s or 70s. Now, it's all about, utilizing the best space. So when I saw this, I still felt like, oh my God, I cannot imagine living there. Because just by looking at the pictures, I felt like, yeah, it was a sensory overload lah, and I don't know whether I would want that to be the place that I stay. Yeah.
But it's not. It's just the lift lobby, right? It's not your house. It's not literally your.
So
place,
now, I mean,
right?
like my whole life, whenever I'm walking back to the lift lobby, there's a certain sense of like, okay, calmness and all. So now, like I like walking back to my current lift lobby. It's very calming. So then when I see them, like, oh shit, I go. Then the whole time in the lift, then I come out, and then it's like this tunnel that is a bit overwhelming before I can get home lah. So that's what I felt about the red ones. But it also became known that there are 11 blocks. 4 have red, 4 have purplish blue, and 3 have yellow. And if you look at the pictures of the yellow, it kind of feels very different. And I don't know about the purplish blue ones, but then to me it was, I think it's just the choice of the red was too harsh. Because I totally agree, like it'll be super cool if like even in the distance you can see your home, or yeah, like people telling people, oh, I live at the red block. I remember last time when growing up in Tampines, there were these wavy blocks that were kind of curved, and all my friends hated the fact that I say, oh, I live next to the wavy blocks. But they knew where it was lah. So this one, I think is the color, because I do agree with certain things that Darren said lah, that we want to be experimental, be innovative, but also at what expense lah? Like I wouldn't want to live in those red blocks lah, to be honest.
No, so you're saying that because it's just overly stimulating in some way.
It's too red. That's why the color is too bright. Like the yellow one looks more tolerable.
Could it be? Okay, so if it was pink, you think people would make a fuss?
I think if it was like hot pink, then also be like, oh, Lloyd, just calm down, like pink is nice. I'm colorblind, so I think my contrast is also a little less. So I don't know, for full color people, maybe it's like, holy shit. So I think it's just too strong a color, too strong. But for you like it. You can imagine living there.
So maybe. No, that's the thing. I think it's different when appreciating it from as someone who's not living there and living there as well. I think that's the nuance that maybe is being lost in this. Like I think, I think the residents will give a better perspective on how it's like to live there, right? Yeah. Whether there's a sensory overload, whether they feel it's very creepy and things like that. Because it does. I was quite shocked at how red the place looked at night, right? And it really had the vibes of a red light district and everything. And we talk about the sensory overload, but also on the flip side, it could be that in red light, like this certain, you might not see things very clearly, and it might actually be harder for people with poor vision, right, to get around, as opposed to having bright light. So there is a general, as much as you want to do, it would be cool to innovate and be funky on it and all that. But at the end of the day, these are common spaces that people live, where people have to go access every single day.
Yeah.
So if those people living there are having a hard time for whatever reason, sensory overload, or just finding it hard to make out details and things like that, I think that is more important than about the aesthetics that other people look at from a distance. And I think to his point, I think he's not wrong in saying that, we don't want to stifle innovation or creativity and all. I think there's other ways to do it within the block also. Not necessarily by making a public access area so
Jarring.
so colored in such a strange fashion.
Yeah.
A bit jarring and all that, right? You whether it's like you having space for murals and things like that all around the block. I think there's other ways to make it interesting. Even like, let's say a whole whole one side of the entire HDB block entirely painted by murals. You give Singaporean artists a chance to do something like that. I think they would love it, and it'll just be as even more outstanding probably than just a block flats being red in color. So I think you have to find a balance between what's practical and what is so-called allowing innovation and everything in Singapore.
I think I love it when I see buildings with murals on them. I think that is so cool. I can't imagine the decision-making process, because who decides what mural goes on? But then I was also thinking about the red thing, right? I totally agree that it's harder to see things. And think about it, if you're bleeding, right? Then you won't know you're bleeding. Right. There will be a place
in the situation where you accidentally you just stabbed your wife and then you didn't realize that there's blood stains on your shirt. Then you just go out and then you're like, oh shit, the police is gonna catch me.
Or if you have blood on your hands or you're dripping blood or something, you wouldn't know. So then I'm also thinking, maybe if you extrapolate that, maybe HDB blocks shouldn't be painted in the colors of any bodily fluids. But then I realized, okay, that would a lot of HDB blocks are painted in a color of bodily fluid, lah. But that was just poor parameter to base it on. But I think it's the color. Color. It was too red.
Yeah.
It was too red.
Yeah. And I mean, remember like how like in Bishan, for example, the red blocks, because the blocks are painted red on the outside, I think.
Yeah.
Or they use red bricks or something. It has become a very unique feature of Bishan, right? So it's not that you can't use red or you can't use very intense colors or what, but I think when it comes to lighting and places where people need there needs to be like a minimum level of like basic, like clean white lighting. I think they should still adhere to those standards.
Yeah. And I mean, I was thinking, but BTO, they always have the mock-ups of the models and how it looks like and all that. But if you click on the website, it just looks a bit reddish, lah. I think no one was expecting like this red.
Yeah.
But I mean, so I mean, I hope this doesn't make like the future BTOs just be like stock standard and vanilla again, because it's one of the things, like what you said, it's nice to see from afar. It's nice to be like, I think that's a step in the right direction. But the people who are actually stepping into the lift lobby are like, hey, fuck you, lah. Like, you like your lift lobby like this or not? But I hope it doesn't kill any ideas that could be a little more different, lah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Very interesting little debate.
Interesting, but not as polarizing as the first one, lah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But yes,
cool.
Do let us know what you think also.
Yeah.
I think especially if you live around the area and you have thoughts about it as well.
Yeah.
I think Harish, you used to be a Tampines boy as well,
I used to be a Tampines boy. Tampines always have a special home place in my heart, until I moved away from Tampines and I realized, it's pretty far from everything. And I understand some of my friends saying like, why are we going to your house again? It's damn far. I'm like, why is it far? Tampines is awesome. But I still love Tampines. I still love Tampines.
Maybe if you lived in the red blocks, maybe people would be like, oh, it's so cool. Let's go and visit your house in the red block.
Yeah, when they come, it's cool. When they come, it's cool. They'll take photos and all that. Then after that, maybe I'll just cut them on the way out, so they won't be able to know they're bleeding.
I see. So you can live your fantasies of being a serial killer more easily.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But cool.
But yes. Speaking of brighter things also.
Yes.
Sorry, what's your one shot comment?
My one shot comment was posted on our subreddit by a long-time commenter, But Den Ho, 5 days ago. It was a poll where they asked, when you miss a couple of Yalabat episodes, in what order do you catch up on the episodes? So the three options was earlier episodes first, then later episodes first, then earlier episodes, and shuffle. So, I mean, the vote has ended already, so the results are out. most people listen to earlier episodes first, then later episodes, which I thought would be the other way around. I thought people would listen to later episodes first because it's more current, and then go back to the earlier episodes. Yeah. Did you vote on that?
I can see, but there's an element of no, I didn't vote, but I can see why there is an element of one podcast building on another as well, right? When we make references backwards and all.
True.
So there is that element that people might consider when choosing which one to listen to.
Yeah. I guess it's just my contrarian thinking. Silence.
Contrarian and it's different from
yes.
Trying to be different from
everyone.
Exactly.
My goal in life, be different from everyone else. Yes. But I mean, it was 17 votes to 12 so not like a lot of other people also felt the same way. But I thought that was interesting But what's about you?
Yeah. The other, so my one shock comment was from, I think, long-time listener Jungle Jimbo 88, commenting on our podcast, talking about the Lee Hsien Yang Oxley saga. He said, thanks for having the chutzpah to cover this sensitive topic and see if Sudhir is willing to come onto the podcast to give more tea on the book or the parliamentary coverage. So, and then he lists out a series of questions that he would like to answer. So, I think, it may be time to revisit, another podcast with Sudhir. I think we always enjoy having him on the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm not sure because I'm not sure if people are sick of hearing about the Oxley saga and the ebook and everything. Already.
Yeah.
I think everyone needs to read the ebook, but whether they want to discuss it and all, it's there's been a lot of news about it already for the last few years. Right?
Yeah. Exactly. So I mean, see because even now there's all this talk of Lee Hsien Yang wanting to run for president and all. It's just like never ending, never ending. Yeah,
never ending.
Cool. Yes. All right, and what? Speaking
of never ending, what is your one shook thing?
My one shook thing was just something that done by an eatery in Singapore, Sri Sun. I don't know what's the full name. It's a prata shop Sri Sun. And because, this past weekend, Menu got thumped 7-0 by Liverpool. And they just ran this promo that if you, okay, let's not dwell on that, okay? But if you show up in your Menu jersey, you get 7 free pratas. Because it's prata kosong, right? And apparently it's been something they've been running since 2019 when Liverpool beat Barcelona, because I'm guessing they're Liverpool fans. And then yesterday it came out that they gave away 6,800 free pratas now. And to me, I think that's so awesome. I mean, as much as they're Liverpool fans and all that, I think it's a brilliant move and it's fucking hilarious. And you see pictures of all these Menu fans in their Menu jerseys just having prata. So I thought it was a brilliant kind of marketing thing, whatever. But it was just hilarious. Hilarious. I think it must be quite fun. You go there with your fellow Menu fans.
I guess it's. Yeah, so I was thinking as a Menu, since you're a Menu fan, it's like a nice consolation, right, for what was a very shitty afternoon for Menu fans, right?
Yeah. Exactly. So I mean, it was misery loves company, Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. What about you, man?
Cool. But speaking of misery, I think my one shock thing is something I'm still in the midst of enjoying, but I think everyone should really check out Chris Rock's Netflix special, his stand-up comedy Netflix special, Selective Outrage, because I think everyone knows that he addresses the elephant in the room, which is Will Smith's the Oscar slap incident from last year. He addresses that. And I haven't even got to that part yet. I mean, I've seen the clip, so I haven't got to that part yet, but even just I just watched a few minutes in the first 10, 15 minutes already, I was really like, wow, this is amazing. It's like Chris Rock and it is why we love Chris Rock, right? And why so many generations of people love him as well, because it's just so funny, and he just pokes fun at so many things about woke culture and all that. Just hilarious.
And he's on Netflix, right?
Yeah,
he's on Netflix.
I'm enjoying it, so do check it out.
He's on Netflix,
Yes, it's on Netflix.
So when you
already.
watch comedy shows, like I'm guessing is it hard? Is it because it's hard for you to sit down for 1 hour with your kid and all, or you like to break it up?
No. I think it is because of there's competing interests lah, right, for your time, when you have a kid and things like that.
Mm.
So if you can, I mean, if you have the luxury of like just sitting through the full hour, please do so. For me, I do need to. I think for stand-up comedy, the good thing is that I can listen to bits and pieces without having to sit down and commit the full hour. I think it allows you to take breaks, and you can always go back and revisit the parts if you forgot what's being discussed before. But
true.
it doesn't matter because they're always starting a new joke every few minutes, right?
Yeah. That's true. Cool.
So yeah.
Cool, man. Awesome. Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yes.
And we'll talk to you at the end of the week.
Back to the grind.
Back to the grind.
Yeah.